Hey Wolfpack, welcome to Eunoia. It's your host, Sable Danielle, and today we're joined by Raquel Gomez. Hi Raquel.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us today. I found you on Instagram because I'm an avid hiker and I like to follow nature pages, and you seem to be a hiking advocate. And then come to find out that you have Atabey Outdoors. That's your business, your non for profit business. So I would love to talk to you about that today. But before we get started, I wanted to pull a random question out of here. So you'll answer it and then I'll answer it. Okay, so how have unhealthy relationships helped shape you? Is If it's too heavy, we could pick another one.
That's awesome. That question is in such alignment with like what I'm doing as far as my own personal healing work right now. So that's why I took a deep breath. But um I think they have truly caused me to look inward and really figure out what it is that I want for myself and what I deserve. Um, I think a lot of I won't go too deep, but I think a lot of the unhealthy relationships had similar patterns of me not really knowing who I am. And so kind of molding to whatever the other person wanted me to be, or whatever I thought I whatever I thought they wanted me to be. And so it's really caused me to figure out, like, what does Raquel want and what does Raquel deserve? So yeah, I think that's where I'm at right now. And it's been an exciting journey to figure out like what my purpose is and to walk in my purpose. And I can't wait to talk about more of that today.
Yes, I love that answer because I feel like everything that feels uncomfortable to us is meant to teach us something. And for most of us, or a lot of us, it's just through unhealthy relationships. And I like that you brought it back to just you not knowing who you were really. Like you were living life and then it kind of just hit you and you had to take time to figure it out. And I think that that's a really important part of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so why don't you tell us about who you are, what you represent in Atabey Outdoors?
Okay. So I am Raquel Gomez. I grew up in the Northeast, but currently located in Phoenix, Arizona. Um, been doing outdoor stuff all my life. Have loved hiking and camping, and was willing to try almost any outdoor sport as a teen and adult. Um, and so this this I guess this idea for Atabey Outdoors stemmed from my history of not having anyone who looks like me outdoors, in the groups that I was doing those activities in. So a lot of times as a kid, I would have to choose whether I wanted to be outdoors doing the stuff that I really felt passionate about, or being involved with my family and my community. And so I wanted to create a program where the girls didn't have to choose, that they could be outdoors and also be with their community and their family and people who look like them. Um, so I guess, yeah, that's it, right?
I That's such an amazing cause because I didn't really grow up outdoors, like hiking and doing all of that. I grew up in Illinois and there were trails, but as far as like mountains and all those things, I didn't really see any of that. And there was no one really around who was outdoors. I just went on hikes with my mom, with our dogs, just like locally. But I always loved the naturey, like the most foresty looking areas, you know?
The forest
Um,
preserves, yeah, that's what they have there, right?
yeah. Yes, just and little random regional trails, but the trails aren't like much. Not that locally where I grew up, But you never saw any melanated people out there very much. If they were just kind of out there with their dogs. But overall, people who are outdoors are not melanated. So it does, I can see where it causes a conflict where you're like, do I want to do this that I really want to do, where no one really looks like me, or be with the people who look like me, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And what's insane about the whole thing is it still looks like that today. I mean, we talk about being kids and not seeing anyone, and I'm still an adult and only seeing one or two other melanated people on the trail. It's it's I want to say incredible, but it's not incredible. It's very awkward.
Yeah, it's like incredible, but not in a great way. It's kind of
Right.
like, how come no melanated people want to be out here? Like, are we just not used to it? Do we feel like we can't be out in these parts? Like, where does it really stem from? I didn't think about that question, but where do you think that stems from?
Yeah, so that's an important piece to what I do is trying to figure out how to move past those stereotypes and those fears, because that's really, I think, all it is the fear of the unknown. At least that's the most popular answer that I get when I ask, families and kids, like why they don't go outside or, what's stopping them from going camping. A lot of them are scared. They're scared of what they might find out there. Which I think is interesting because, and we could talk about this more later, but I think it's interesting because I think they should be more fearful of finding themselves out there. Like they're fearful of animals and insects and someone coming out of the woods randomly and getting them. But what I've experienced out there are true revelations about myself and who I am. And that has been scarier than any animal coming out of the woods.
Yeah. You're right, because that means you have to actually decide, okay, I recognize these things, I have this revelation. Do I want to put in the work or do I want to stay the same? And
Right.
staying the same is comfortable, but not necessarily easy. And then putting in the work is a whole lot of work and hard things to go through, but it's also very rewarding at the end.
Exactly. Yeah. So that I think fear of the unknown is big. I think just our history of, being enslaved and being tortured and killed and raped out in the wilderness, being brought through the wilderness to be traded. These are all things that I believe still affect us to this day because those things pushed us into cities. It pushed us into inner cities and and away from the wilderness and away from the land. And I think we just got so disconnected and so far from our nature that, they just kind of need to be redirected back and kind of need to be reconnected to where we truly belong, because I believe that we all truly belong outdoors in nature.
Yeah.
Not necessarily recreating like skiing or mountain biking, but at the very least, communing together outdoors, breathing in fresh air, sitting around a fire, talking with each other, speaking about those fears, speaking about revelation, speaking on self-reflection, self-love, all the things that, that you talk about with your business and that I talk about with the girls in Atabey.
I love that. So, how has the community um, how has the community been taking your business? Like, have they been open to connecting with nature? Has it been hard to get people to try it?
It's been hard to get people to try it.
Yeah.
I would say there's separate communities. So there's the outdoor industry community. There's the outdoor industry Black community that is like, yes, let's do it. Let's get more of us outside. We need this. Like, this is important work. And then you have the outdoor white industry who says, yes, we need this. I wish we could get more people outdoors. This is important work. However, not doing the work necessary to bring the outdoors to the Black and brown community. So it's tough to be in the middle of that because I'm trying to bring these Black and brown families to something that they have no idea about, and they're already so disconnected from the outdoor industry that they don't even know the possibilities of what going outdoors looks like. And I have been so connected to the outdoor industry for so long that I am in a way disconnected from these Black and brown communities that are fearful of going outside. So it's been a learning experience. It's really like forced me to remember like when I was afraid and remember like what are some of the things that stopped me from going outside and understanding those fears so that way I can relate to these families and to these kids who are hesitant to go out. I do find though that like it's easier for a white passing child or a white passing family to get involved in the outdoors than it is for a more melanated, a darker skinned person to feel comfortable outside. That's what I'm noticing that the pattern is. And it could be just that they feel out of place, which would be valid. There's no one really who looks like them out there. And so I think overall, everyone is really excited about the program and they see what I'm trying to accomplish. They see that, you know, I would love to just bring more people who look like us outside. And that's really my ultimate mission, nothing else. And so they understand and see my passion for the outdoors and for the Black and brown community recreating outdoors.
So when it comes to the fears and kind of helping them get through it, when you're out there with these families or these kids, I guess maybe what would you say are like the top 3 things that they're kind of concerned about as you're out there, and how do you mitigate that? And I guess like before you answer it, for me, like when I talk to people about hiking, it's always like, well, I don't want to run into no bobcat or no bear or anything like that. And it's like, I've seen jackrabbit. I mean, it just depends on where you are for real. But like, I'm in the Las Vegas area, so I haven't seen anything huge that's like going to hurt me. I've seen jackrabbits, I've seen lizards, and these really fast birds. But like, that's it.
So I have a similar experience when talking to people about like the outdoors that I like. I'll say I'm going camping or I'm going hiking or I'm going to do whatever. And they'll be like, aren't you afraid you'll run into a mountain lion? And I'm like, I've been outside hundreds of times and I don't think I've seen a mountain lion once. So, but it doesn't help that these videos go viral. The one time this person sees a mountain lion and records it on his phone and it's going viral. But yeah, I think giving the girls an opportunity to, and we can talk a little bit more about programming too, but giving the girls an opportunity to ask questions, providing that safe space for them to ask what they consider, and I don't like this phrase, but what they consider dumb questions, right? Yeah. Because they think, or they know that I'm an outdoor person and I'm an outdoor expert. And so they don't want to ask me questions that they think might be dumb. But what I try to do is before like big adventures. So we had a couple weeks ago, we had a camping adventure. But the week before the camping adventure, I did like an intro to camping workshop. So we basically did everything we would do at camping. We looked at all the gear that we would be using. We set up the tent. We like pretended we were sitting around a fire. We like dressed in layers. We did a game where they like threw on all the layers. You could we had to see how fast you could throw on all your layers. And so just giving them an opportunity to be camping without actually being camping. And so we had a Q&A section, and I would say the top 3 things was that what you said was like, what if we see an animal? They didn't say the specific animal. They just said like an animal. And I was like, I think the number one answer to that is animals are more afraid of us than we are of them. And so, especially since we tend to make a lot of noise as humans, they don't really want to be around us. So that's usually the answer that I give them. Also, we're in a campsite where it's in the middle of the city. Like, I'm not taking them out to the wilderness yet. I'm giving them just a taste of what camping could look like. So we're in Gilbert, Arizona, where we're sitting around the fire. You can still see a street lamp. Like, so having them understand that there's still cars around, there's still buildings around, there's still people moving around us in the city. So we're not alone, quote unquote. Another fear or question was like using the bathroom. So a lot of them think, so I did like a self-care workshop too. It was like outdoor hygiene. And I taught them how to like pee outside if there's no facilities. But a lot of them think now that we like are always peeing outside, like that there's not going to be any bathrooms anywhere that we go. So that was like another number one question was, and I was like, there's going to be a bathroom literally like 100 feet from our tent. Like, we can always go and use the facilities. Another one was like their period outside, which comes up, and that's like a real thing. Yeah, what if we get our period out there? Like I said, we have facilities. I will bring extra toiletries. We'll make sure you have what you need. If you need to wash up, like, we'll make sure you have wipes. We'll make sure that everything is as smooth as possible when it comes to that. I'm trying to think. Oh, insects like spiders.
That's my thing.
Bugs. So, me personally, I just don't think about it. Like, I just pretend like they're not out there. Because if I think too much about it, then I get in my head, as most people do. But yeah, there's different things that we can do. I told them we can like pull. So their thing was getting spiders in their sleeping bag or in the tent. So teaching them to make sure to close the tent when they go in and when they come back out, so that no bugs will get in. Closing your sleeping bag up so that no bugs will get in, like making sure the whole of the sleeping bag is folded under. We'll make sure there's no bugs getting in. We can check the sleeping bag before we get in it with a flashlight, make sure there's nothing in there. Other than that, bugs are normal. Bugs are going to be around. I don't mind bugs outside. Bugs inside is a different story. Like, bugs don't belong inside.
I find them everywhere, but I do respect the fact that they are like outside is their home.
Yeah, it's their,
So,
and that's exactly it. It's their home. We're the visitors. So
yeah, I still act like a child when I see spiders. But like, I really don't think about it honestly when I'm out there, unless I actually see them And when I hike, like I literally usually just go on trails. I do like to find lesser populated trails because when I hike, I like to have my dogs off leash so they can feel more free. But
Yeah.
the only time I think about it is if I'm ever going through like high brush, but I really don't go through high brush. I don't know if you do with your girls because you're actually doing more like, I think you're doing more adventuring than I do.
Well, it's desert over here, so there's not a lot of high
Oh,
brush that we can go through.
makes sense. So do the parents usually come along or is it just usually the girls?
We've had a few parents come along to a couple adventures, but for the most part, they just drop them off, and they're like, "Good luck." Raquel's an expert. You got this.
Well, I love that you make it educational and it's not just like, hey, let's go camping and just have a fun weekend. It's no, let's make this educational. Let's get you comfortable outside. I want you to know what this is or how to do this so that you can and will want to do it by yourself if you ever get the desire, you know?
Exactly. I think that's so important, and it was a huge like goal of mine when creating Atabey Outdoors, was like making sure that these girls are equipped and have the knowledge and like gear that they need to be able to go out there on their own. Because I'm not always going to be there, and I want them to feel comfortable saying, I want to go out on a hike and I have all the things that I need to go out on a hike and I feel safe because of that. So I'm going to go. I don't want them to like be like not go just because they don't have the information that
Right.
they need.
That's nice. So you also mentioned programming. I don't really know. Do you want to talk about that? Because I don't really know what you mean. And
Yeah.
I'm interested.
Yeah. So kind of like what you just said is like making sure it's not just like, oh, we're going camping. This is so much fun. Like it's making sure that they have the knowledge, the information, they feel comfortable going out there. It's also another thing that was important to me when creating program is to make sure that they leave with like valuable skills outside of outdoor skills. So, like being able to communicate with each other, being able to work together as a team, like being able to have hard discussions about being Black or brown out in the wilderness, racism. We talk about bullying. We talk about all kinds of things like saying sorry and what it means to say sorry and making sure we're saying it with intention, holding each other accountable, talking about like gratefulness and what that means to each other, and making sure that we talk about what we're grateful for on a daily basis. We're not with each other on a daily basis, but like at least during Atabey, they get a chance to talk about what they're grateful for, so they know that that's something that they could practice outside of Atabey too. So it was really important for me to connect life skills to the adventure so that, you know, it's more than just having fun outside. It's learning something and leaving with something that they could use in school or they could use at home. Um, so yeah, so each program, each activity has a skill link. So like for paddle boarding, we talked about core strength, gut health. We had someone come in from a colon hydrotherapy clinic, and she came and discussed like why or like what they're putting in their bodies and how it's affecting them and how it's affecting their personalities, their moods, their activity level, their bodies, their mental health, just like making sure that they have that information. Whether they use it or not, I don't know. Maybe they went home and had McDonald's afterwards. Who knows, right? But at least the information was given, right? Because I felt like as a kid, I didn't either I was getting that information, I didn't understand it. Maybe I was getting that information, but it wasn't from the right source, or it wasn't from a source that I respected or listened to.
Yeah.
And I think growing up, most of the information that was coming to me was coming from white men and women. And so maybe given this information from people that look like them will give them a little bit more, confidence, or it will stick somehow and they'll learn something.
Yeah. I love like everything about your program as you're talking about it and I'm getting more details. It really makes me happy because my overall mission with Eunoia, it doesn't necessarily talk about the outdoors, although I love the outdoors. It's just about being able to survive and love yourself authentically and talk about the things that we didn't necessarily grow up talking about or things that are comfortable talking about. And so the fact that you're not just talking to them about camping and hiking and outdoors, you're actually teaching them life skills that are very important to talk about and learn as a kid so that when you get older, it's easier for you to handle things and understand things. It's like you're planting the seed. So more than likely, they probably went home and ate McDonald's later someday. But maybe in a month or a year or a couple of years later when they get older, they're going to be like, she did say that. I did learn that when I was at Atabey Outdoors program or whatnot, and that's really special, I think.
Yeah, even if it's the smallest of things. And that's what I like about Eunoia is like it talks on accountability, it talks on wellness, health, mental like check-ins. Like those are all things that nobody was talking to me as a kid, especially outdoors. Like, and it's all intertwined and connected. So yeah, so I just want to give these girls like a fighting chance. Like even with your introductory question, I started to think like, yeah, when I was young, nobody was talking to me about self-love.
Mm-hmm.
Had I been privy to what self-love truly means and what being your authentic self truly means, yeah, maybe I still would have had unhealthy relationships, but I feel like I would have at least known to love myself enough to get out of those relationships when it was time to get out,
Yeah. You would have been a little better, a little more equipped to handle the things that were thrown at you.
Yeah. I felt like a lot of them went on longer than they needed to because I didn't have these tools that I needed.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily mean just like love relationships either. This also goes to friendships or working relationships or just any personal relationships, I think. I tend to talk a lot about loving relationships because that's a lot of what taught me. But relationships expand on far more than that. And when I start to think back about cycles of any type of relationship, it all kind of stems to the same thing, regardless of whether it was romantic or friend or whatnot. So
yeah, and that's what I like about Atabey too, is like these girls are learning relationships early on, and not romantic ones, but platonic relationships with other girls. I mean, there was so much competition. I don't know if it was the same where you're from, but like there was just so much competition between Black and brown people for women, especially girls, for no reason. I never understood it, and it was so frustrating because I always wanted to see us working together, not against each other. And so Atabey gives them an opportunity to break down those walls because a lot of them have never tried an outdoor activity ever, or at least the one that they're coming to try, they've never tried it before, right? So they're all on the same level there. A lot of them don't have outdoor gear that they need, right? So I provide them all the gear and they all get the same gear. So there's no competition there.
wow.
So I think like the outdoors, it provides like a sense of vulnerability that I don't think many other hobbies, I'm biased, of course, but I just bring that level of vulnerability that I have yet to see in any other like hobbies or sports. It's really cool to see them like come week after week and like start to get to know each other's personalities. And if one girl's like not there, they'll be like, oh, we really wish so and so was here so she could do whatever, like perform her little there's this one girl who like performs she does like these episodes, and she's like a one-man show. She like talks to herself. She's like one character for a second and then another character for a second. And so it's like really cool to hear them say, like, I wish she was here to perform her show.
Yeah.
Well, Wolfpack, that wraps up part 1 of our conversation with Raquel. I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode. Please tune in next week for part 2. Peace and love.